This is Optimal Living Daily, episode 1686. The interesting stuff is the important stuff. Part 1 by TK Coleman of tkcoleman.com. And I'm Justin Malik. Happy Thursday and welcome to one of the only podcasts in the world where blogs are narrated to you for free with permission from the authors. It's an award-winning podcast thanks to you. And we keep this intro nice and short, so let's get right to it and start optimizing your life. The interesting stuff is the important stuff. Part 1 by TK Coleman of tkcoleman.com. If something is interesting to you, then it's probably useful to you. Some stories and ideas may not have any practical relevance at the exact moment that you're consuming them, but they will very likely offer you something of value down the road if you're genuinely captivated by them. Here are 4 reasons why. Number 1, you'll remember them. Richard Saul Wurman wrote, quote, "People never forget things, they just never remembered it in the first place because it was too boring," end quote. This won't happen as much if the content you're consuming is engaged out of interest rather than perceived importance. Nothing is more readily retrieved than a story or idea that's been heartily received. Number 2, they will affect you. It's one thing to read, watch, or listen to something. It's another thing to be compelled by what you read, watch, or listen to in a way that makes you sit at the edge of your seat or burst out into laughter or shed a tear or stay awake all night because you can't put the book down. These visceral experiences are things that lead to moments of conversation and reflection that pave new avenues of thought. Think about the time you went from being an atheist to a theist, or vice versa. Think about the last time you decided you needed to break a bad habit or get your act together in some way. I'm guessing the odds are high that you heard a speech, song, story, or statement that hit you right in the gut around the time when you decided to turn over a new leaf. Am I right? Or were you moved and motivated to turn your life around by a lecture that you forced yourself to sit through half asleep because you were afraid of your mother yelling at you for getting an F in anthropology? People tend not to move towards something unless they're moved by something. If the content you're consuming isn't provoking you, startling you, inspiring you, disturbing you, stimulating you, or gripping you, do you really think it's going to change your life? People don't get fired up to do the things that make them come alive by reading for their school teachers. They get fired up by reading for themselves. Number 3, they'll help you make the points you need to make. I gave a talk at a conference once called Dreams Don't Come True, Decisions Do. I was asked to come on stage and give a brief pep talk before the evening social. I knew I wanted to make a point about stepping up to the plate and trying to create things without waiting on the world's permission. So I walked on stage with the intent to do exactly that. And that's when it happened, the usual magic that stems from following your interests. The night before flying to the conference, I watched an episode of a TV show called Fringe. It wasn't to build my career. It was to satiate my constant craving for science fiction. It's irresponsible, I know, but that's how it works. Even though I didn't watch Fringe to be practical, it turns out that the episode I watched the night before provided a perfect illustration for the point I wanted to make. Telling that story might have been the best part of my speech. It certainly was the part most people remembered. And more importantly, it was the part that was the most fun to talk about. My Fringe experiences happen quite frequently on and off the stage. I may find myself coaching a Praxis participant or facilitating a workshop or being interviewed on a podcast, and I'll have an idea I need to get across. And that's when I do what every teacher, coach, writer, speaker, or friend needs to do. I tell a story to make the idea come alive. And where do those stories come from? Moments of irresponsibility. Moments when I read a book, listen to a song, or watch a movie for the sake of sheer enjoyment. Whenever I give a talk, there's always a young person in the audience who asks me, "Where do you get your stories?" I always say, "I don't get them, they get me." They reach across the room, capture my imagination, and refuse to let me go. Comedians often say that the best jokes are the ones no one can steal from you because they're about the specifics of your life. They're uniquely your own. Chris Rock can't tell a Chris Farley joke because it just wouldn't make sense. The same is true of the stories, metaphors, case studies, examples, and illustrations you use to sell products, make presentations, give speeches, write books, help clients, impress employers, and make friends. The aspects of your work that move other people the most will be the ones that move you the most. And you can't find that kind of stuff by reading books like 50 Generic Stories for Teachers, Authors, and Leaders. You have to read and watch the stuff that hits you in the gut. Number 4, hear that in tomorrow's episode. You just listened to part 1 of the post titled The Interesting Stuff is the Important Stuff by TK Coleman of tkcoleman.com. I'll have some comments, but first, out of curiosity, do you actually cook the stems, seeds, and cores of your red bell peppers or your corn? These veggie parts have so often been overlooked and thrown away until Zen Bee saves the day. Zen Bee is a plant-based snack brand that creates plant-powered products that make use of veggie stems, seeds, skin, and cores and turn them into guilt-free snacks that are easy to enjoy. With a unique culinary blend of veggies, fruits, nuts, and spices, they created Zen Bee Veggie Bites and Zen Bee Veggie Sticks that come in flavors like beet, red bell pepper, corn, pumpkin, and more. I love the pumpkin flavor. And the best part, Zen Bee snacks always have a hero vegetable as the main ingredient, so you can be sure that your snacks are packed with good old fibers to fuel your day. And during times like these, Zen Bee also delivers straight to your door. Right now, for a limited time, you can try 3 flavors of Zen Bee. Just visit zenb.com/old and create your own sampler for just $4.99 plus free shipping. That's 50% off plus free shipping. That's zenb.com/OLD. It's a really great deal if you use that link. And thank you to TK. I'll finish the rest of the post for you tomorrow. That line about listening to or reading or watching stuff that hits you in the gut is really important. One of the reasons I started this podcast, hoping that these blogs you might not have come across on your own will hit you in the gut and will be something interesting for you to remember down the line whenever you need it. That's definitely how it works for me. I can't expect you or myself to remember and implement everything from this show, but instead, if it's interesting, we'll retain it. And then when our life comes to that point where it makes sense, we could be implementing a technique or thought pattern that we heard right here. That'll help us get us through. So hopefully that was helpful for you. And again, I'll finish the rest of the post for you tomorrow. But that's it for today. Thank you for being here and listening every day. And I'll be back tomorrow to finish up this post where your optimal life awaits.